Oh, all right. I think at 3 minutes past here, we should probably get started. We always have quite a lot on our agendas, a variety of topics. So again, welcome to today's Monadnock Broadband Group meeting. If you're a newer participant, the Monadnock Broadband Group is an informal coalition of municipal officials, practitioners, and other stakeholders with an interest in understanding and coordinating relative to broadband issues in Southwest New Hampshire. The MBG serves as an important regional forum for education and peer learning on broadband-related legislation, funding opportunities, implementation models, and more. And scheduled to go up to 90 minutes. And I'm Henry Underwood, planner at Southwest Regional Planning Commission. We're coming to you, or some of us are coming to you from Cheshire County's delegation hall. Thanks to the county for allowing us the use of the space. I just invite folks joining via Zoom. Most people are attending via Zoom to say hello in the chat, and if you'd like, share your contact information in case people want to connect with you outside of the meeting. Just some general notes we're all used to by now, but make sure that your mic is muted if you're not speaking. That'll help with the audio for everyone. And as a reminder, Monadnock Broadband Group meetings are recorded and they're shared on the SWRPC website at the URL on your screen. Cool. Just a quick brief recap. Good morning. Morning. There's a couple agendas on the back table if you'd like one. Just a brief recap of our last Monadnock Broadband Group meeting. It was towards the tail end of 2023. At that point, the state was working on two important steps in their implementation of funding from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. One being the Broadband Equity Access Deployment Program, which required the state to develop plans explaining how they would use approximately $200 million in funding to reach unserved addresses. Part of that also talked about a challenge process, which is just kicked off. We'll back to that later. We also heard from the University of New Hampshire, who was a contractor in developing the state's first ever digital equity plan. Folks from the Cooperative Extension and a group called the National Collaborative for Digital Equity partnered with them to develop a plan, talked about the outreach sessions associated with that plan development, and had a great discussion. So that was last time. Seems like ancient history. Both of those plans have been approved by the federal government, the NTIA, which allows the state to start implementing those plans. Great. So today's agenda, a mix of things as usual. As I mentioned, a lot has happened in the last several months, especially on the provider side. Many towns have seen build outs, begin, wrap up, get the wheels turning. And to kind of showcase that, I reached out to a handful of internet service providers and invited them to share a little bit about their accomplishments, things they felt might be of interest to the group. We'll talk about the work going on at the state and federal level, mainly tied to the NTIA funding. a brief update on kind of some work the Planning Commission has done to understand information technology needs, and then kind of moving quickly through into things like hearing from you. You know, what are you working on, and interested to hear more about at subsequent meeting. And thanks or hello to those of you who are just joining. Invite you to just say hello in the chat and share your contact information if you care to. As we move into our first agenda item. As I said in the last year, many providers have made significant strides in improving broadband service, and I've invited two providers to this session from AT&T and Comcast to share a little bit about what they've been up to, and there'll be a couple of minutes at least for some discussion. So first up, I'd just like to welcome Ryan Clark from AT&T. Just give me a moment, Ryan, to end my share. Screen over so folks here can see you okay. And yeah, right, if you could introduce yourself and let me know if you have any issues sharing slides, if you plan to use them.
Great. No, thanks, Hunter, and hello, everyone. As Hunter said, my name is Ryan Clark with AT&T. I live in Manchester, New Hampshire, and have been working with the company for the last 6 years now, which is flying by. But let me share my screen, and I'll get into that, and then we can go from there. All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great, let me just turn it into full screen and we can get going. And how's that? Is that full screen for you?
Yeah, it's full screen.
Okay, great, wonderful. Well, again, everybody, today I'm going to be talking is kind of, we've already discussed a little bit about you know, the improvements we've made from a network perspective in New Hampshire. You know, in a big part of our network improvements over the last 6 years, since 2018, have really been a part of our FirstNet build out. It's built out in partnership with FirstNet, which is our public safety network. And we are the largest you know, public-private partnership with the federal government, has allowed us to go to places where we hadn't been before, really, from a network perspective. And as a result of this partnership with the federal government, we've been able to really increase our network coverage in a lot of parts of New Hampshire and across the country that are potentially more rural, or, you know, not just kind of population centers. So throughout my presentation, you'll hear a lot about FirstNet. And I know probably not everybody or many are public safety or first responders on the call, but what I'll say up front, so that way we all kind of have a good understanding, is that our FirstNet network is a public safety network, but all FirstNet towers run commercial network, and all AT&T towers have our FirstNet network. So really, when you build out the FirstNet network, it's also a benefit to our commercial users. So this expansion in coverage is a big benefit kind of for all involved, whether you're public safety or commercial users. And that's kind of why it's important for me to bring that up. So moving on to kind of what the impetus for this expansion was, in 2017, we began kind of working with the state, and I should back up even further. Really, FirstNet began as a result of 9/11 and a result of communication networks getting overwhelmed on that day, primarily for public safety. And following that, the 9/11 Commission basically found that public safety needed their own network for communications. Fast forwarding to 2016, 2017, AT&T bid on the contract to be the provider for the nationwide public safety network. And then moving into the winter of 2017, we worked with every state, but specifically here in New Hampshire, we created a plan to build out 34 specific towers that the state wanted these towers in these specific locations. And then from 2017, end of 2017 through 2023, we worked on building those towers. And I have maps later on that will go and explain a little bit more in depth on to where those towers were and why we replaced them there. But that's a quick kind of synopsis of FirstNet and why we worked on building that out, and why we've kind of gone to expand where we have been. Next is a slide kind of giving you a national perspective. And, I will be focusing very close to home in New Hampshire, but I want to start nationally for a second. Nationally, it's important to get a perspective of how effective this network has been with more than 6 million connections, nearly 30,000 public safety agencies and organizations, a whole bunch of FirstNet apps and devices. It's important that we have a lot of folks signing up and committing to this network from a public safety perspective, because it allows us to reinvest in the network. It allows us to reinvest in expanding coverage. And so this slide is important to show that there's been a really high adoption rate from public safety. And again, that allows us to build out the network further for both first responders and commercial users alike. Again, 3 million miles of coverage across the country. We've added a whole bunch more for our deployable assets, which are, again, something I'll be talking about a little bit more later on. But these assets really allow us to expand coverage quickly in an area that may not have it for rescues or for emergency situations or planned events like fairs. And I'll be showing some pictures of what those deployables look like and how they've been used in a few slides. Here is a map about kind of, this is a little old, it's 2022, so some of these numbers have grown, but this is a map on the left side of the screen showing kind of the density of FirstNet users in every county, and then some numbers regarding the adoption rates for our users. You can see, I think probably we're close to 7,000 plus subscribers now. We've got a whole bunch of communities across the state involved, more than 200 agencies. Band 14 sites, you'll see me talk a little bit about Band 14 sites. And what Band 14 is, it's a band of spectrum that we use designated for public safety, that we've made tons of upgrades to existing towers, and all new towers typically have Band 14 on it. And it allows the tower to propagate the signal further, and it penetrates buildings better. It goes through the forests better. So it's a really great band of spectrum that we were licensed to use as part of the partnership with the federal government. We've made huge investments in the state, and those investments have led to a significant increase in our cell sites and our infrastructure across the state. And again, on the right, you'll see requests for support, and those are our deployable assets that we've helped public safety with. And again, these assets are designed for public safety, but when public safety are succeeding from a communications perspective, commercial users win and commercial folks win as well. Next, I want to talk about our investments. So again, over the really, we're talking primarily since 2018 for most of these things. You'll see some different numbers here, 2019, 2021, but primarily most of this is from 2018 forward. These network investments have been a huge benefit to public safety and commercial users. We've invested more than $120 million to improve the wireless network. And a lot of these wireless capabilities now allow you to stream video, do your homework, do banking. You can really accomplish a lot over the wireless network now. in most situations. And so expanding that network really improves the access to internet and for many. So we're really proud of that capability throughout the state. In just the 2021 timeframe to 2023, we've made it 84 upgrades, which includes new cell sites. And then I will also kind of continue to break this down. So in later slides, you'll see more specifics of where some of these locations are. You see this new purpose-built FirstNet towers. You see here the 34 FirstNet new site builds. These were 34 locations that the state selected and asked us to go build out. So these are locations that, again, are probably typically more rural and identified by the state that we needed to go there to provide coverage for public safety. But again, where public safety wins, our commercial users are winning also. We also built additional towers with rural providers up in the North Country. So we launched a whole bunch of new towers in the North Country that you'll see again on a slide map in the near future. We, kind of in addition to those 34 FirstNet sites that I've talked about a couple of times, we also launched 38 towers that were AT&T built. And when I kind of say the difference between a FirstNet site and an AT&T site, a FirstNet site was where the state wanted us to go. An AT&T site is just a location where the AT&T company decided it was a good investment for us to go. But again, all these sites benefit our public safety and commercial users. Hundreds of towers with band 14. As I mentioned, band 14 is a great band of spectrum that we're able to upgrade our towers to, that provide enhanced coverage, and the FirstNet Sat Colt, and that's our bigger truck that provides a really good amount of coverage in a portable basis. And then we also provided the state with 2 compact rapid deployables, which are smaller but even more portable than the truck. So looking at what we've been able to invest in your neck of the woods specifically, we've been able to improve connectivity in Cheshire County. We've got at least 32 sites today total, which includes 4 new sites since 2018 located in Stoddard, West Chesterfield, Keene, and Jaffrey. I will also mention in Keene, we are working on a site actively that we're hoping to have on air by the end of the year. Sullivan County, we have at least 21 sites that include 3 new sites that we've turned up since 2018, Cornish, Claremont / Unity, and Charlestown. And these locations are kind of based off of our network folks. And then Hillsborough County, west of Route 3, Milford, 29 sites on there that include 2 new sites since 2018 in Antrim and Hillsborough along Route 9. So that's a look at your neck of the woods specifically and how we were looking at it. So a lot of great improvements since 2018. Here, I know I mentioned a few times, we're getting towards the map portion of it, but here are the 34 site builds that the state wanted us to go build. So this was an agreement that we had in plans with the state back in 2018. So you can see here, they're all on air at this point, and you can get a good look of where some of these are. This is the same map, but with those 14 rural partner sites. You can see how that really helped to enhance coverage in the northern part of the state. Here's a map of what our network looked like back in 2017. So before really we began our FirstNet network build out. Obviously some good coverage in areas, but you can clearly see plenty of gaps that we needed to improve our network in. And here is a look at where we are at the end of 2022. So, since 2022, we've added a few more towers, but this is a good look of where we've been at since 2022. So a huge network improvement between 2017 and 2022 that we're really proud of, bringing a lot of great connectivity to the entire state, really. Here's what band 14 looks like expansion. So you can see all of the highlighted towers where we've added band 14, which provides a lot of great coverage to our network. And here I'll take a quick moment to just talk a little bit about where we're going next. So this was phase one. All of this was kind of the phase one of our FirstNet build out. And we've completed phase one. We're now moving to phase two, where we will be using additional funding from the federal government that has been paid back to them by AT&T, and they're going to reinvest in additional network build out. And we're going to take the state's guidance again on where they want new towers to be placed. So we're excited for phase two to continue working on this project and building out new towers in places where the state needs them for both public safety, and then again, commercial users win as well. Here's a look at what that sat colt looks like. Again, this is based in New Hampshire. It's a cell site on a big truck. Basically, it can be used in emergency situations. It can be requested by public safety for fairs, planned events, or fire and rescue, search and rescue. It can be deployed rather quickly. I think we say it has to be deployed. We're under contract in less than 8 hours, and typically you get that number a lot lower. So it's a great resource for public safety to help provide them with the communications they need to do their jobs. Here's a look at the compact rapid deployable that we provided to the state free of charge. They now cover the satellite bill, but the equipment itself was paid for by AT&T and provided to the state. They just dictate where this goes. I know it was used for the eclipse earlier this year and was really effective. Here's an example of the Sat Colt being deployed at a fire in New Hampshire, northern New Hampshire. You can see how there's a kit there with a bunch of cell phones. So anybody who's not a FirstNet user can at the site grab a cell phone, and they create a chat group and can be connected. Some of the other things we've been doing from a health and wellness perspective across the state have been really impactful. So this kind of is, as we've worked with public safety, we've learned that there are a lot more new work with the FirstNet Health and Wellness Coalition, which was established in 2020 to partner with health and wellness agencies to focus on nutrition, stress reduction, working with families, to help, with suicide prevention, a lot of really serious issues. We've committed to supporting public safety and making sure that they have information and resources they need to be supported. So that's been a really great partnership. We've also worked with our Hero Pup program, which is our comfort dog program. Of course, the police department has one. We're working with the state police in New Hampshire to provide them with a comfort dog out of an organization right here in New Hampshire that trains them. And they help the community a lot. And not only do they help the public safety, but these dogs are often used at crime scenes or traffic situations or courthouses to help those in the community deal with traumatic incidents. So in addition to that, we've got digital divide that we've been working on from an AT&T perspective, which is supporting students with laptops and other ways to stay connected so they can do their homework. We've helped boys and girls communities out and again providing their students with laptops and teen tech centers. So what I'd say to the group is, if there are any ideas on how your communities need help from a digital divide perspective, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I can't always promise that we'll be able to help, but if there are situations where kind of things align and it works, we're definitely here. We want to be supporting our communities. So if your region needs anything, again, I put my contact information in the chat as Henry asked, and I can be available to help out in any way I can. So I tried to breeze through that as fast as possible. I know we've got a little bit of time for some questions, but Henry, I'll hand it back to you and how you want to manage that. But I appreciate everybody for your time and letting me chat today and give you an update of what we've been able to accomplish in the last few years from a network perspective. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Realize that was a tall order to achieve the packet. I certainly learned something in the fact that AT&T has been involved with digital equity, and access issues, not just the cell towers.
Yep.
We do have a couple minutes for questions, and maybe I'll just kick things off. You talked about the FirstNet deployment having two different phases, and it sounded like AT&T is in the midst of getting guidance from the state about continuing, that deployment, and maybe phase two, if I was following you. I guess my question is there what are ways our region, municipalities, counties can provide feedback into that process, if any?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, we are working on figuring out exactly when those conversations are going to start happening. I believe they should happen this fall. But I can certainly send you, some contact information, Henry, and that way your group can weigh in on locations and areas. We AT&T are we're bringing our network team to the table, but we really receive feedback from the state on where they want us to go. So we try to stay out of it and not give them like any leading answers, basically. The state definitely is who will be driving this process. But as we get closer and as those meetings start getting scheduled, I can certainly keep your group in the loop, and then you can give feedback and thoughts as well to the state. I'm sure that would be welcomed.
That's super helpful, Ryan. And when you say the state, could you name the agency or bureau?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So we work with the Statewide Interoperability Executive Committee, the SIEC. And they've been a great organization that we've worked with for a long time, made up of public safety from across the state. And it is with their feedback that, and there's, folks from the Department of Public Safety who are on the committee as well. And it's, again, made up primarily of public safety individuals who then, help us build out, or help us give us the feedback and the decisions on where to go and where to build out the network. But this is a 25-year contract with the federal government. So AT&T is here to provide support for FirstNet for the long haul. I know I mentioned kind of like phase one is done and now we're moving to phase two. Well, it will also kind of continue beyond that. So we're really excited for the partnership.
Great, thanks. Other questions for Ryan? We're a pretty small group, so please just unmute yourself and chime in.
I just speak right up.
Go ahead, Joe. And if you could briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm John Pasquarelli. I'm on Route 32 in West Swansea, New Hampshire. And I see everything that AT&T is doing on a commercial basis. And it looks like, you're doing a lot of safety things and stuff like that. But what about the general population of just general people? I mean, what do you have to offer us out here?
Yeah, sure. So this network that I was talking about the entire time, and all those towers and all those dots that I showed on those maps are all, and when I say commercial users, that would be general public. So anybody with an AT&T phone would have access to all those towers. and be able to do anything that they needed to do through their phone. Again, whether banking or if you have a SIM card in your laptop, you can do all your anything you need to do on your laptop via that internet connection to that tower. So it's really a network that, yes, it's benefiting public safety, but there are at the same time huge benefits for, again, we call them commercial users, and I should have been more clear up front what our definition of commercial users are. But commercial user to us is any normal citizen or individual who walks into an AT&T store and purchases an AT&T phone and uses our network that way. So that's what we call our commercial users. And this network, our network across the state, any tower we have, benefits the general public.
Thanks, John, for the
providing. Right. But that's only providing that I establish an account with AT&T. I mean, I'm still out here, on a landline, on a 10 megabyte, internet connection.
Right. So he's speaking to just wireless coverage and not typically home connections, mobile connections. How about, are there any question or comment from the audience here in Keene? And any other questions from folks joining online? Okay, cool. Well, let's keep on trucking then, as they say. So in the second part of internet service provider updates, wanted to ask for a wireline provider, like a Spectrum or Fidium or a Comcast, to kind of share again some of the recent progress in build outs, what they see maybe as future needs, services they would like to make sure there's awareness of. And Comcast took me up on that invite, and I think Brian Christensen's gonna feature a presentation here. Just give me one moment to get his slides. And yeah, Brian, I'll let you introduce yourself, but
I'll let you do that first.
Yeah, juggling the two screens.
I'm glad you're doing it, not me.
Okay. Good blank, everyone. I'm going to move things back and forth here. Okay, Brian, you should be good to go. I'm going to ask you to click on the.
I was just that was my first question. All right.
Thanks again for joining.
Thank you, Henry, and for members both in person and online. For the record, as the slide shows, my name is Brian Christensen. I am the Director of Government Regulatory Affairs for Comcast, covering Maine and New Hampshire, and with me is Chris Hodgkin, Vice President of Government Regulatory Affairs, or State Legislative Affairs. He'll introduce himself. He's got a couple slides here. So, but first of all, we kind of wanted to tell you who we are. We cover about 16 towns in the Planning Commission's footprint, so we don't cover every town, but about half of them. So we want to take a moment, introduce you to our products and services, our footprint and stuff, and then we can get into a little bit of technology here. I'm going to trust the system here. There you go. So there's our agenda, which we sort of just talked about. We're going to go over our product slides, our future technology, and then we were asked to talk a little bit about the transition that we're working on from the ACP Affordable Connectivity Program. So our product to bridge the digital divide amongst low-income families. So we'll close with that, and as Ryan mentioned, we'll hopefully have a few minutes for some questions and answers at the end. So, all right, this is who we are. We were founded about 6 years ago in Tupelo, Mississippi. Chris and I work for the part of the company. It's Comcast NBC. So we quick part of the company that is essentially connectivities and platforms. And that entity of the company has 189,000 employees. We're headquartered in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can see that we get 34 million cable subscribers, cable connections or customer relationships throughout our footprint in the country. I think it's 39 states and territories. Is that the number?
Close enough.
Okay. Where our regional headquarters is in Manchester, New Hampshire. You can see our state investment in New Hampshire since 2021. So in the past 2 years, it's almost $300 million. That footprint that you see on the right-hand side of the screen, diagonal from Hanover all the way down to Rochester, New Hampshire on the seacoast area. The yellow is our service area. As I mentioned earlier, we service about 16 towns in the Planning Commission's footprint. And I'm sharing some of this stuff kind of give you the breadth of our portfolio to bring our products and services to the market. I'm going to try this next slide here. So again, this is who we are as a company. I talked about Comcast, NBC, Universal. I think we're going to spend all our time. I know we're going to spend all our time today talking about the Xfinity products and services. So the Xfinity TV, television, internet, mobile, home security, and so forth. But this is a slide to demonstrate that there's a lot behind what we are delivering to our consumers, whether it's Peacock and the Olympics coming up here in a week, 10 days. Our news coverage of the RNC and the DNC on NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, et cetera. And we're a global company. We own Sky and Sky Broadband, and a lot of those assets you see on the right-hand side of the screen. A little more into our products and services. I think Broadband, we're here talking to the Broadband committee, so folks are interested in connectivity. So the next couple slides will focus about our connectivity, but we're more than connectivity. We offer our mobile products similar to AT&T. We offer our Xfinity entertainment. So think of that as a traditional television service where you get hundreds of channels from NBC to CBS to CNN to Fox, ESPN, et cetera. Hundreds of cable channels. Our Xfinity internet, which we'll spend some time talking about. Our Xfinity home. I think you've probably seen online, but bottom right-hand side is our Xfinity home, which is a home security system, home monitoring system, windows, doors, flood watch, pet monitoring, cameras, obviously. And something we launched recently, Xfinity Rewards. So I pointed out earlier that we started in 1963, about 60 years ago. We have a lot of customers that have been with us for a long time, and they want to say, well, what is in that for us? So we have an Xfinity Rewards program where you get rewarded for your subscriptions and your services. You can enter to win raffles once in a lifetime Olympic experiences. You could go to exclusive movie premieres or exclusive theme park events at Halloween Horrors down at Universal Studios. So that comes with kind of that portfolio showed in the earlier slide where we bring all this to the market. Okay, bear with me as I click this button here. Xfinity Mobile and Xfinity Internet portfolios. I see everybody waking up here in the crowd. So let's talk about the Xfinity Internet speed portfolio. So we get two slides up here. And Chris is going to get into a little bit about our network evolution here. And let me catch my breath, but we are in the process of upgrading our network throughout not just New Hampshire, but the entire country. The red slide on the right is kind of our traditional or legacy internet speeds. And the blue slide on the left is our upgraded speeds as we're introducing new technologies into the system. These are the speeds that are coming into the market, and they have launched here in New Hampshire. It's a rollout process, so there is a process to launch it. But these are our speeds in the next foreseeable future. I think in the next 18 months here. So those are where we're going, and Chris can talk about the technology behind that. But the picture of the mobile phone on the left is our Xfinity mobile offering. So we think they're a pretty compelling service. We are a mobile virtual network operator. We run on the Verizon network lines, but we have something else too. We have our deployed Wi-Fi hotspots. So your new smartphones are designed to jump on Wi-Fi. We have millions and millions of Wi-Fi hotspots throughout the country. Tens of thousands of them here in New Hampshire, where your phone is designed to jump off of that mobile network, off of that cellular network, and get onto a Wi-Fi network. These are our price points. You guys can see them for yourself, so I won't go through them. But those are kind of our connectivity speed tiers, both on the fixed wireless and wired service. With that, I'm going to take a breath, turn it over to Chris, and let him speak. So it's already there. Just gonna hit the low. Yep. Don't move it though.
Good morning, everybody. As Brian mentioned briefly, my name is Chris Hodgson, and I'm the company's Vice President of Government Affairs in New Hampshire and Maine. And my area of responsibility is our primarily public policy, our State House elected officials, Governor's Office, and our state agencies, including BEA, who's highly engaged in broadband through the BEAD program and the NTIA program, and other state agencies, including Department of Safety and the like. So as Brian mentioned, I'm going to run through how we are approaching our most current network enhancement and investment in the state. I'm going to start on this screen here. Brian mentioned it briefly, but just to sort of orient yourselves to where we are today and where we're going in the immediate future is represented by the red screen, the red Excel rows and columns, and the blue. So on the right on the screen, that is our current speeds in areas where we're still operating our DOCSIS 3.1 network and have not gone through an intermediary step in the network evolution that I'll describe in more detail in a second. So in parts of the state where we have not yet begun the process, the speeds that are available are on the right on your screen. And then in areas where we've completed some of that network evolution, work in the field to upgrade electronics, to remove electronics that aren't necessary anymore. We're currently offering in the state the speeds and level of service on the left. That speed offering, those product offerings on the left are an interim step towards what we're calling the 10G network. It's a longer term, multi-year evolution to a DOCSIS 4.0 protocol, and I'll talk a little bit about that now. But that this step here, the speeds that are represented in blue, is currently available here as we're making this rollout. So what is the technology path that we're on? So we call it the 10G platform. It is essentially has four elements. It is far faster symmetrical bandwidth. It allows us to go up to 10 gigabits symmetrical on the current DOCSIS 4.0 protocol. We have tested in the field on a live network 6 gig down, 4 gig up. So we are past the proof of concept. We're past the hardware certification stage. We're actually the work that we're doing in the field right now is to get to this point in our network over the coming months, a year. So it's far faster speeds, multi-gigabit symmetrical speeds. It offers lower latencies, enhanced reliability, which I can talk a little bit about, and a better, more secure platform for the network as a whole and our customers at the individual level. The underlying protocol is DOCSIS 4.0. For any of you who are familiar with the way that cable has deployed high-speed broadband access over the years, we used the DOCSIS protocol, data over cable, service interface. It started out with DOCSIS 1, which largely was not deployed as a consumer product. 2 is the one that you would have had in the early 2000s, the old 6 down over 1 up, really that first iteration of high-speed broadband. We have made continuous improvements to it, upgraded, layered on technologies, and the next iteration of it is DOCSIS 4. And what really powers the ability to do this over the existing 1 and 1.2 gigahertz networks that are out there in the field now is this full duplex technology, which I'll describe next. So that's a very high level engineering drawing of what the DOCSIS 4 world and full duplex world will look like. But as I mentioned, what it will allow us to do is deploy multi-gigabit speeds up and down over the existing network. So unlike other upgrades for other technologies, this is not a rip and replace. It's not an overlay. We are using our existing HFC network, removing the active electronics from it, introducing passives, and allowing what is essentially very high bandwidth transfer from the customer modem to our optical node in the field. So the work that's going on right now to get to that point where we can do this is the replacement of that active electronic suite in the network, conditioning the network, work in our head end and central office locations to be ready for it. Ultra low latency. DOCSIS protocol has always technically offered extremely low sub 10 latency. It's from an engineering perspective, has some channel conflict and some technologies around that. The way that DOCSIS actually rolled out, it has had higher latencies. This new technology allows us to go sub 10 milliseconds for latency. So very, very low latency. And again, proven in the field, proven in a real world network environment and being rolled out now. I touched on how we're doing it. That really goes to the rapid deployment piece of it. This is not, we do not need to overlay with all new infrastructure. It's work that we can do in the existing HFC hybrid fiber coax network to deliver these speeds. One of the benefits of this is that it is far, far less commercial power intensive. So at the end of this process, our network will be transmitting 3 times as much traffic for 50% of the energy consumption. So it is that is meaningful for a whole host of reasons. It's a far more sustainable, simpler network, but the energy footprint is dramatically reduced. And a lot of people don't think about how much energy these communication networks take, but frequently in many towns, we are the largest consumer of commercial power, bigger than large industrial users, bigger than large commercial properties, hospitals. These networks are can be energy intensive, and this offers far more efficient energy footprint. And then lastly, on the security side, really, and this is going on in all networks, improvements in the technology around network health, network sensing has really improved security in general. So what is full duplex? That's the question that a lot of people have. They understand rapid deployment, sustainability, and security. So virtually all communications technologies either use time division duplex or frequency division duplex to transmit data. Time division duplex, think of Wi-Fi networks, think of some cellular networks, think of DSL network. the traffic, all of the bandwidth in the network is being consumed either by upstream traffic or downstream traffic at different times. So the modem will use all its available bandwidth to send traffic up in a certain period of time, and then receive traffic. That's time division duplexing. Frequency duplexing is the way the DOCSIS network is built. It segregates some of the available bandwidth for upstream traffic and some of the available bandwidth for downstream traffic. What full duplex allows us to do is to send upstream and downstream traffic using all the available bandwidth at the same time. So it's a 2+X increase in available bandwidth, and that is how we're able to, on a 1 gigahertz or 1.2 gigahertz HFC network, get to these multi-gigabit symmetrical speeds. The traffic is being sent back and forth at the same time with the same frequency. So there are obviously technical issues with that. That has been what we've been working from a technology perspective to overcome. FDX has actually been available as a technology since DOCSIS 3.1 in 2016, but the frequency conditioning and interference issues had created challenges. We've overcome them with some self-identification, conflict technology, and sounding technology that allows us to do this in a real-world environment. So before I hand it back over to Brian, because we're going to take a turn towards the digital divide and our efforts there, any questions on the technology side of this? And a big foot on here leading on the questions, but I thought this was maybe an appropriate time to do that.
No, to offer the Dr. question, please do. And I have a quick one if no one else does. So my question was, we talked about hybrid fiber coax, and that it's like a jumping off point for these newer speeds. Do you have a sense of, in the communities in our region, how many have that in place today? Are there some that don't have it?
So our entire network everywhere in the state, all 500 and roughly 70,000 passings, virtually all are currently HFC networks. When we're doing expansion, we are currently looking at making a construction decision between an EPON network, HFC network. It's entirely project driven. So we have communities where we're expanding into. It's an entire brand new community build. We're going from essentially greenfield to serving the entire community. It may make sense to do EPON there, but where we're expanding our existing network incrementally, those are HFC extensions. And just to give you a sense, I don't think Brian mentioned it, but we took a look at what that means in terms of sort of incremental growth in the network. And since in 2023, in the 16 community footprint, we extended our existing network by just under 600 new homes. So, already in all the communities we serve, really high percentage of all homes passed, but continuing where we can to push out and add passings.
So if I can just add a clarifying question, it's sort of a question for you. The 10G, the FDX, that's platform agnostic though, right?
That's right. So whether it's, because I mentioned in the beginning that some networks use TDD, some use FDD. We use FDD, but this new protocol, it's agnostic as to what the network materials are you use it. So whether it's an EPON network or an HFC network, it doesn't matter. And another advantage to the way we're going about this upgrade is that these DOCSIS protocols are backwards compatible, right? So with some upgrades, you see a more disruptive consumer and customer experience because equipment in the home needs to be replaced. The new network won't serve that older equipment. This protocol serves all the customer equipment that's currently out in the field, whether it's customer-owned equipment or leased equipment. They may need a newer modem to achieve the speeds, but as we upgrade, they'll continue to get the service that they have been getting, which is really reduces the customer impact in a positive way. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I do have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Out of the 300 million investment in New Hampshire, how much of it is new build versus upgrade?
Question.
Yeah.
So it's all capital.
Yeah, I get that.
But I don't have that.
I'm not, yeah, I don't have, we'll give you an educated guess. I'm not gonna say it's 90% new build and 10% upgrade. I bet it's in the 60 upgrade, 40 new build percentage. Maybe even 70-30. But we don't have that breakdown. There's some capital investment to upgrade the network as Chris described, but it's not getting all sucked up.
We are in the midst of a period of a greater period of expansion. We are building in the Lakes region whole new towns, so that probably increases the percentage of the capital that's being dedicated to new build. We've added homes past every community we serve, but the expansion of Laconia, Guilford, Belmont Hill is those are whole town builds, and they're expensive. Well, if there's nothing online for questions, I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Yeah, it's really the last slide. I think Henry, you asked us to talk about our transition from the Affordable Connectivity Program. And the end of that, sometime in May, where basically the program ran out of money. So we were well positioned. We have been provider of low cost internet since 2011. So over a decade, we've been providing our Internet Essentials program for $9.95 a month. It is obviously designed and pointed towards low income and needy folks that may not have the means to connect to a full suite of products and services. We have different tiers of our Internet Essentials. If you remember, ACP was I think $29.95 credit from the federal government. We have Internet Essentials Plus, which is higher speed service. And then we have a program where we're launching our new, we talked about the Xfinity Mobile. So you sign up for our Internet Essentials or our Internet Essentials Plus program, and you can get one free line of mobile for that as well. So, we thought we were pretty well positioned to transition out of ACP. Here are our programs for the folks that need to transition out of ACP. Obviously, you do need to live within a Comcast footprint, and that commercial, there are restrictions that apply, but this is generally the program we have. And that is it for our presentation.
So,
Thank you, Brian and Chris.
so I might add one thought on the ACP transition. This is obviously a big change for consumers. They were accustomed to essentially getting a zero bill for service. And as we rolled out ACP, we foresaw the potential of this program would sunset. And the customer relationships that we started with ACP allowed us to prepare ourselves for a possible transition back. So customers who had ACP are automatically eligible for either Internet Essentials or Internet Essentials Plus. We've been able to streamline and waive some of the requirements you saw there on the screen through December 31st of the coming year, so that really lowers that barrier for folks to make that transition. So no credit check, waive the 90-day, typical 90-day requirement that you're not a customer. Those are the sorts of things that we hope will make it really easy for folks to maintain their connectivity and just adjust to this end to the program.
No contracts.
And they were, of course, talking about the sunset of the FCC's Affordable Connectivity Program. For those of you who haven't been watching that, it was explained, it offered a monthly credit towards internet bills, and that program kind of expired.
Yeah, finally was consumed and
Yeah.
not
right,
reauthorized.
Any other questions for Brian or Chris before we continue on?
Thank you for your time.
So far, thank you both. This I know because I've attended most meetings. This is the first time we've had Comcast join the MPG meeting. So welcome, a late welcome, and thanks. And they, of course, weren't able to share contact info in the chat. I'll figure that out after the meeting. Okay, just give me one moment, folks, while I switch gears a little bit. I also want to take a look at a sound issue we're having here. That's probably so we're moving on our work board agenda as usual. Next agenda item is about federal and state broadband updates, and I'm going to help to deliver those along with Clay Purvis of NTIA. And Clay, just give me a moment while I make you a co-host. But as a lead out to this, back to these here. So as a lead up to this, I mentioned the two bigger announcements between the state and the federal government that plans related to the BEAD program and the digital equity plan have been approved, and that releases funding to be used for implementation, and it also triggers a lot of tasks the state has to do. Some of those involve opportunities for us, in this meeting to contribute to. So I've asked Clay, who's a federal program officer for Vermont and New Hampshire, to just remind us about the timeline and things we need to be aware of.
Great, thank you for having me. Before I begin, Henry, I have a somewhat embarrassing question. I don't use Zoom, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm sharing, and if it is the way you're supposed to share a PowerPoint presentation.
No worries. They keep changing it every time, but we can see your all of the menus and things. So
Okay, I want to get rid of those. So if I go to slideshow and I say start from beginning. All right, does that show the presentation?
Yeah, you're good to go.
All right, the only thing is I can't see you, but that's okay. And one more thing before I begin too, just to let you know, my neighbors landscapers are mowing and the Air National Guard are flying their jets. So if my audio is bad, let me know, speak up, and I'll try to do something to make myself heard. So my name is Clay Purvis. I'm the Federal Program Officer for Vermont and New Hampshire with the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, where the IIJA broadband projects, or the majority of them. This would include the BEAD program, and the suite of digital equity programs. And so I'll just give a brief overview of each, as a reminder, but I won't go into detail on all of them, given that we discussed it last time. And then I'll provide a state level update on where we are and what's coming next. So the BEAD program is $42.5 billion infrastructure, broadband infrastructure program. That's 42.5 billion nationwide. It includes the U.S. Territories as well. This is essentially from start to finish a 6 to 8 year program. And I say start from the signing of the IIJA. For the past couple of years, we've really been in implementation. So we required every state to create a 5-year broadband action plan. This was really intended to get states to kind of think holistically about what's happening with broadband deployment in their state and the resources in addition to BEAD that are available, and how those resources could be structured to get to 100% coverage. Also in this time, the Federal Communications Commission implemented the Data Act, which was a law that directed the FCC to create a nationwide broadband map that would map broadband availability on a location by location basis. So in that time, they created something called the Fabric, which is a nationwide database of residential and business buildings that would be what would they call a broadband serviceable location, a place that would probably purchase broadband or be eligible to purchase broadband. And that is the map that we are using to implement this program to decide where broadband money, funding should go. From 2022, we awarded broadband planning grants to every state, including New Hampshire. They were required to use that money to create a 5-year action plan, as we discussed, and then create something called an initial proposal. The initial proposal is not a high-level planning document like the 5-year action plan. The initial proposal is really kind of the instruction manual for how a state will dispense its BEAD money. So the federal government is awarding or allocating BEAD money to every state. It is up to the state broadband office in each state to subaward that funding to internet service providers to cover broadband serviceable locations that are currently unserved or underserved. We are requiring 100% coverage. So New Hampshire, like many states, is going to get there with a mix of different federal and state programs. But the money that New Hampshire received is to be used for 100% coverage. So that means at the end of the program, there are no broadband serviceable locations that are currently identified as unserved and underserved without broadband at the end of the program. Like I said, every state received an allocation of funding. This was based on a formula that was heavily weighted toward the number of unserved and underserved locations. Just unserved locations in every state. So New Hampshire's received a total allocation of $196 million. That includes the $5 million planning grant. So there's a remainder of $191 million to implement the program and provide broadband service. The initial proposal, like I said, is the instruction manual for how the state will allocate or award that money, the 191 million. It describes two things at a high level. Two things. We have volume 1, which describes a plan for a statewide challenge process. This is a process by which the state will is taking the FCC broadband data and seeking input on what areas or what locations might be inaccurately reflected in that map. So locations that are currently marked unserved or underserved, maybe they're served after all, or there are locations marked as served but are not actually served. And so we'll talk about that a little more in detail in a minute. The second component, the volume 2 of the initial proposal, really focuses on the subgrantee selection process. So how will the state award money to ISPs? At a high level, we're looking for a transparent, a competitively neutral process that is inclusive of all carrier types. So we do set a standard for what minimum broadband should be. That is 100 megabits down, 20 up to the location. So every grantee will have to, at the end of the program, be able to provide 100 megs down, 20 up to every location that it was awarded funding for. We're also prioritizing end-to-end fiber. So to the extent a state receives competitive bids from 2 or more providers, we are asking states to give weight and give more consideration to the end-to-end fiber bid. That's not absolute. There are situations where that might not be the case, but in the vast majority of cases, the end-to-end fiber is the preferred type of technology. So this year, New Hampshire's volume 1 and volume 2 are approved. That volume 2 approval occurred last month. New Hampshire is one of the first states. I have to hand it to the broadband office. They really nailed the requirements. I think they were the 15th or 16th state to get approval. So much faster than the majority of the country in getting through the curing and approval process. Once the initial proposal is approved, the state has 1 year to conduct its challenge process and its subgrantee selection process. So between now and next June of 2025, that's really where the execution is going to happen, where we're doing the challenge process, we're selecting projects for funding. At the conclusion of those 2 processes, the state will file and this is a document that will go through and discuss what the results were of the challenge process and subgrantee selection. So it'll include all the projects. It'll include an affirmation and evidence that all of the locations that are unserved and underserved are in fact served. And I should also note that once all unserved and underserved locations are served, the state can use money to fund community anchor institutions, something that New Hampshire's plan lists out what those are. And then also there are non-deployment projects the money can be used for, and that'll largely include digital equity type programs that the state has described in its digital equity plan. So here's a kind of another way to look at the timeline. We're through initial proposal drafting. We're through the public comment period. I think a lot of local governments provided feedback on both the 5-year action plan and the initial proposal. We're through IP review and approval, and we are now in the state challenge process. So New Hampshire, I'm just waiting for my connection. My internet connection is unstable. Zoom tells me, so I apologize if I'm breaking up. New Hampshire is currently running its B challenge process. The window for that opened on July 15th, so on Monday. There are 3 phases to the challenge process. There's lodging a challenge, making a challenge. That goes for 30 days. So that is open to local governments, nonprofits, and ISPs can lodge challenges. So saying a BSL is served or a BSL is unserved or underserved. And those 3 types of entities, local governments, nonprofits, and ISPs, can lodge challenges to the current status of New Hampshire's broadband map. That runs for 30 days. Next month, they'll start the rebuttal phase. So they take all the challenges, they provide those challenges to the ISP that maybe asserted service, and they'll publicly post challenges so that anyone else in those 3 categories of groups can rebut those challenges. And New Hampshire, in its volume 1, has laid out the types of evidence that it'll accept. It has a portal. You can go to their website at BEA. You can register for the portal. You can participate. If you're a local government, nonprofit, or ISP, you can participate in that process. And then the final 30 months, it's a 90-day period that this takes place, will be the state adjudicating those challenges and rebuttals. I'm just doing a check because I can't see you all. We're still here and we're still good, because I'm getting a lot of notices saying my connection's unstable.
Yeah, your audio's been mostly fine, and we see your PowerPoint screen with the menus again now.
All right, sounds good.
It's like you have one more slide to cover.
Yeah. And I would just stop and see if there's any questions on this process so far. So we're in the challenge process now. If you're a local government or a nonprofit and you're interested in participating, please register with the state. Go to the BEA website, and we can, after the presentation, I can put a link to the state's website. I think New Hampshire's done a very nice job making it accessible. They have a webinar that you can watch. They conducted a webinar last week, and you can watch that recorded. That goes through provides like a click path for going through and registering, lodging a challenge, what you need to do to make your challenge successful. They also have a variety of a succession of office hour periods that they've opened up. I think those are also available on their website. So that's an hour where you can go and ask your question about, if you're having trouble with the challenge, you can go and ask a question. And they also have done a great thing in that they have kind of on the side. So we don't allow individual residents to lodge their own challenges, but individual residents can go to the BEA website, and I believe through the portal, they can tell BEA that they're having an issue, like their locations unserved or underserved or whatever, and they will make those that list publicly available so that a local government, nonprofit, or ISP can take up that challenge and lodge it on their behalf. So that's a really great mechanism for making sure there's some amount of public input in the process. At the conclusion of the challenge process, we will move into the subgrantee selection process. So when they're done the challenge, they're going to submit their data. We'll verify that they did what they said they were going to do in volume 1 and that they got to the right result. So we'll try to kind of reproduce that result. And then once we approve the list of eligible locations, that's the list. That's the list of locations that are eligible for funding through BEAD. We move into the subgrantee selection. So anticipate kind of late fall, early winter. That's when New Hampshire will start, opening up a process for soliciting project proposals from ISPs to serve unserved and underserved locations. And they'll have that wrapped up and submitted to us by June. And then after that, it's project construction time, right? The funding is available for them to start providing resources to the ISPs who are winners in the subgrantee selection process to start building. I'm just moved to, so any questions before I go on to digital equity? I won't spend as long on digital equity. All right, great. All right, so the Digital Equity Act, much like BEAD, starts with a planning document. New Hampshire also completed this planning document, which they filed with us at the end of February of this year. It's been approved. This plan describes how the state would spend money it receives for digital equity. It also includes kind of a measure of how they're going to measure progress in their digital equity plan. And as we provide funding to states, states will be required to measure their progress against their plan. So 60 million in funding went nationwide to state planning. New Hampshire's portion of that was just over 500,000. It enabled them to write the plan. We're now providing state capacity funding. It's a little confusing how we're doing this, but we are providing capacity funding in 3 tranches. The first tranche is out. We're awarding that money now. So New Hampshire is in the middle of the application process. I believe New Hampshire's allocation for the state digital equity capacity round 1 is about 4.5 million. It's a significant amount given the kind of population of New Hampshire, but certainly there's more to come. We also have a competitive program in addition to the capacity grant. The competitive is open not to states, so state the state broadband office, the administering entity for the state, will really be in control of how the state capacity funding is used, that 4.5 million. The competitive is a separate program that we're running that is open directly to any type of entity that wants to apply for funding. So this could be a nonprofit that maybe does digital skills work or workforce development work or something like that, that they can apply directly to us for that funding. So that's 1.25 billion for the entire country. When they say competitive, I think it's going to be very competitive, right? Because you're spreading that 1.25 billion across all 50 states. Below, we have the timeline for that. We're through the 1-year state planning period, excuse me, and we're now in the state capacity application. For that state capacity funding, this will really be, entities interested in utilizing that money to advance the state's digital equity plan will apply through the state for that funding. They'll work with in this case, the state broadband office at BEA to secure that funding. And then for competitive, they would apply to us for that. And in both programs for the state capacity, we're looking at a 5-year implementation. There will be 2 more application periods that are not shown on this map, but 2 additional application periods that will be coming. And then for the competitive, that's a 4-year implementation. Then the notice of funding is not out yet for the competitive. We're anticipating that soon. I don't have a date, but it'll be out shortly. So if you know of an organization that's interested in that, I would encourage you to go to our website. We have a webpage on the competitive grant program. Take a look at that. There's some actions that an interested grantee could take to prepare itself for that application window. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing now and see if we have any questions. No.
Thanks, Clay, for that update. So encourage anyone to just chime in if you have a question for Clay.
Right.
So far, I think the key thing is, there's a 30-day window or clock that has already started ticking on the challenge process. So the most urgent thing we need to do in our region is consider and participate in that process as a nonprofit, as a municipality, and as Clay said, encouraging the public to provide information into that process. Yeah, Carol has a question. Thank you.
Could Clay put a link in the chat to the list of locations, unserved and underserved locations that are part of the challenge process, so all the individuals who are on this call and others can check that list, make sure that there's nothing in their community that falls into that category?
Yeah, what I can do, thank you for that question. I will put a link in the chat to the BEA's challenge process webpage, which will have all of that information. It'll have all the CSV files with the unserved, underserved, and community anchor institutions, and also have the link to register for the portal. And if you go to the register link, oh, and I see it's been brought up on the screen. Thank you. If you go to the register link, there's also a map that you can look at that shows the unserved and underserved locations, or unserved and underserved BSLs, excuse me, that are included in the challenge process. So let me go find that real quick here, and and it's a little confusing because they had a challenge process for the BMGI grant. And so if you Google it, just make sure you're at the IIJA challenge process and not the BMGI challenge process. But that should be the link there.
And sorry for those here in attendance, I quickly shared a screen grab of the website, which has downloads for the locations, a link to the map that was mentioned. Okay.
They have an office hour today at noon, from noon to 1. So you can register for that on their website. And um, even if you're starting from scratch, that might be there might be some interesting information there that you could listen to.
Thanks, Clayton, for putting that link in. I realize we're at time here. I'm going to switch back, though, to get through the remainder of our agenda, and encourage you to contact Clay offline if you have any follow-up questions. Okay. And for those of you who need to hop off now, thank you for joining. We'll spend another, 10 minutes wrapping up our agenda today. So we wanted to offer a brief update about some work the Planning Commission has undertaken relative to information technology needs. Many municipalities, of course, have found connectivity solutions. That comes with some new questions about cybersecurity, ways to involve public in government proceedings. And we, at the same time, looked around to see what other planning agencies have done relative to supporting communities. There's sort of a case study near us in the Pioneer Valley where a planning agency has worked with their members and an IT consultant to address some of these issues. So we're in the early kind of phases of wrapping our heads around this. As part of that work, though, we conducted some brief conversations, interviews with a handful of municipal staff and officials, kind of with the goal of, talking about some of these goals that you see on the screen right now as opportunities to address concerns or how things are going. We offered kind of a series of general prompts in that handful of interviews where we asked participants to rate kind of their relative agreement with different kind of questions, statements that you see here. They were accompanied, of course, with anecdotes and discussion. But what we wanted to understand from an information technology standpoint, what were things communities were most and maybe more concerned with and less concerned with. And there was, variability, of course, between communities, but maybe the most variability was in some of the scoring. And I won't spend time to talk about each of these items in detail now due to time. But we have tried to kind of distill this information to determine how, as a planning agency, how other partners already doing work related to IT issues such as IMAX, such as Department of Safety, can increase our region's capabilities and security. I think the one from the scoring, the one thing that was not a weak score, but the weaker score was about understanding and following cybersecurity best practices. And we've seen the impacts of that in our region numerous times recently, and it seems to be an area where there's interest in more services and support. So what we wanted to share with the group is that we're we're looking into this issue further. We are very interested in speaking with you more about this topic, offline, if that's of interest to you. And we also wanted to ask the group if this is a topic that you felt is of interest and worthy for future meetings. It could involve bringing in an IT professional, a region who's worked providing TA like the Pioneer Valley. Does anyone have any comments or feedback on that idea? Okay, hearing none, I will move on. I'll say that in our conversations that we had with a handful of municipalities, there was an interest in, I think, understanding some of these issues better, and we're going to keep pulling that thread. I'm going to kind of sort of pass over the legislative updates. The one from the most recent session, SB 247, about carrier of last resort obligations, was voted inexpedient to legislate earlier this year. The other bills have already been resolved and were signed by the governor, allowing communities and communication districts to bond for broadband at special town meetings, establishing a wireless development initiative, and establishing a broadband matching grant initiative, which has awarded funding to Francistown and maybe others. So to sort of wrap up here, this is just kind of the open time for the meeting where all attendees can share any other updates on what you're working on, questions you want to discuss briefly with the group. Would anyone like to share anything? All right, I realize we're at time. Thank you, Tina, for the comment. I do have one last slide that I'll leave up as we trickle out. It shows a form that can be used to provide feedback on today's meeting. And you can use your phone to start this, and I'll send a link out after the fact. But thank you for attending today's MPG meeting. And as usual, the recording and other materials will be available on our website the next day or two. So have a good rest of the day, everyone, and thanks to all the presenters today.